Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian, and we have a really fun, special guest on today. Someone who's been in my life now for almost 28 years. So many of you have heard my story from the previous shows. That I left American Express Financial Advisors back in 1996 to start this coaching and consulting firm that I currently have. And the first year was tough. I don't think I made like $12,000. Didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out, so to speak. And I got a call from a gentleman by the name of Frank Mossett. And many of your long-term listeners probably remember Frank on one of our previous episodes, as well as his daughter Sarah was on one of my shows, and both did a fantastic job. Frank was a field vice president in Portland, Oregon at the time for American Express Financial. And he called me and said, "Hey, we'd like to talk to you about coming out here and implementing your marketing program." And I instantly said yes. And it was a godsend. It was a blessing to my career. It was a blessing to my practice and my business. And it was a blessing to me as a human. And while I was out there, I was working with 10 people. And we had to select these people. They went through the process, and we selected 10 to go through my program. There was one guy who wasn't in the program because he wasn't interested or didn't need to be or whatever it was. But he was this guy that I kept walking by his office a lot, going down the halls, and he was always on the phone. He was always grinding it out. And I'm like, who the hell is that dude? And Frank said, "That's Byron Gega." Byron was pretty young at the time, pretty fresh, but he has had an established, successful career in the financial world. I won't read his bio because I want him to tell you who he is, but he has been a friend of mine for now 28 years, close to 28 years. So my friend Byron, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Thanks, Brian.
Do you remember that day I came in your office?
Yeah, I do, actually. I have a different memory of our first conversation because back then, if you were a successful first-year advisor, which I was at the time, I think I was, top 20, maybe top 10 in the company in total weighted production, TWP. Mm-hmm. And so Frank obviously was short leaders because of hand sleeving. And so he had tapped my shoulder to go ahead and, take over leading and developing, I think 3 or 4 advisors at the time. And I was just horrible. Like, I was just like the worst leader. And I ended up having a run-in with one of the vets. It was like 7:30 at night. It was like late at night, And I remember walking out of the office after that. You saw me. I think you were leaving maybe to cross the street to that little hotel you were staying at, the Phoenix Inn or something like that. Yeah. And you're like, "Hey, how's your day going?" I told you, and you're like, "So somebody put you in charge of the airplane, huh?" I was like, "Yeah." And you're like, "Well, how's that going?" And that was like your favorite line. That is like your quote all the time. "Well, how's that going for you?" And I was just like, "Not good." And you're like, "Well, did anyone teach you how to use the controls or how to set the flight or anything like that?" I'm like, "No." You go, "Do you want to learn how to do it?" And I was like, "Sure. All right. Meet me at 6:30 in the morning. I'll start working on it." And I go, "Where?" And you're like, "In the lobby." I was like, "Okay."
The lobby of the Phoenix Inn.
Yeah. That's what I remember. That was my first.
Okay.
That's what I remember. So you might have come into the office before, but
yeah, that conversation was probably more pre-planned than it looked. It looked random, but it probably was planned because I remember the reason I really did connect with you, even though I did see you down the hall, was I walking by and you were always grinding it out, was when Frank pulled me aside one day, and I'll never forget this. And he said, and you know what I'm going to say because we've talked about this. He said, "Hey, Brian, I know this isn't part of the contract we have for you, but I could use your help on something. I said, yeah, whatever. They were paying me very good money to coach, these 10 individuals in their marketing and sales. And he said, I've got this guy. You've seen him in the hallway and you've seen him in the office, Byron Gega. And he said, he is highly talented, highly driven, but he's a bull in a china store. And he said, can you work with him a little bit on leadership? If we could just soften the edges on this guy, he's going to go places. And so lo and behold, I probably waited outside maybe a little bit, or maybe I timed it when you were walking out, when I was walking to the hotel to run into you. But, well, the rest is history 28 years later, brother.
Yeah. So that was my memory.
I like yours better.
Yeah.
I do remember those mornings, though. So, folks, Byron would come to my hotel. I don't know if it was a couple of times a week. I don't remember how often it was, Byron. Do you remember?
I don't remember either. I was actually just thinking about that just now. I was like, I think it might have been just twice a week. I don't think it was every morning, but it was 6:30 every morning, because we would do it. And then 8:00 was when we started our the first year program. So it had to be at 6:30.
Yeah. I remember sitting in the lobby going through the infamous book, Leadership Secrets of Attila the Hun.
Yeah. I remember the very first meeting. You said, so you watch hockey? And I was like, not a lot. But you know what hockey is, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, I know hockey. I'm like, well, there's actually two types of players that play hockey. I was like, there's the check player and the finesse player. Which one do you think you are? I go, check player. He goes, yeah, you don't need to check everyone against the boards.
We got to learn to skate a little bit, too.
You're like, that's exactly what you said. We got to learn to skate a little bit. You need to be a little bit more Gretzky.
Byron, I look back on those days, though, and I wasn't much of a finesse skater myself.
No.
I mean, who the hell am I preaching to?
But you're better than me.
I was slightly more a better finesse skater than you were, but yeah, that's crazy. I remember. There's so many stories that you and I have shared over the years. But let's start off with, I'd like the audience to know out there, the Bamboo Pack members out there, to know a little bit about yourself. Could you share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you've come from, your family, and really who or what inspired you growing up? And those are kind of things I like to kind of start off with.
Yeah, so I'll just start in the beginning. I grew up in Portland, Oregon, born and raised there. Actually, fourth generation Portlander, which is kind of unique. My great grandparents had moved there in the 20s from Croatia. I met my wife there, Aubrey. We're going on, 16 years now.
That long?
Yeah, 16 years. And we've got two children, Briella and Gavin. Briella just turned 30 this year, and Gavin turned 25. And then Briella has my grandson, Asher. He turned 9 this year. I started with American Express Financial Advisors pretty much right out of college. Had planned on becoming a lawyer. And so my major was U.S. history with an emphasis in 19th century constitutional law. And I did an internship at Smith Barney. And during that internship, the top broker told me, or convinced me to, get into financial services. He was a former lawyer, kind of walked me through everything, and basically wanted to recruit me and hire me. And I was super impressed, and went home, or went to have lunch actually with my grandfather. And I told him the story, and he was like, "Well, you got to interview with 3 people. 3 is the magic number. You can't just talk to the first person and do something." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so I got an interview with Payne Weber, got a job offer at Payne Weber, and then I got a newspaper, which who does that anymore? And I opened it up, and there's the first ad, American Express Financial Advisors Career Day. So I was like, "Well, I'll go check that out." I've had the American Express card for a couple of years now, and it seems like a good company. And went there and checked it out, and they were the only company that was dumb enough to let me do it on my own. And so I was like, "All right, I'm doing this." And so, a few months later, got my Series 7 and 63 life and health, and got started. Wow. Ended up being a top performer in my first year, so jumped into leadership for the next couple of years, and there was a platform shift at the time at American Express, and I went back into just being a practitioner for a while, and then there's an opportunity with a good friend of mine, Ed Kelly, to do some kind of consulting with the employee channel at the time for American Express. So I, kind of felt the buzz or need to do some leadership. So jumped in on that, and we did that for a few years. And then Neil Taylor convinced me that I should just get rid of my practice and become a field leader for him. And so I decided to do that. And for the next 3 years, I was a field leader on the employee channel side, and twice got Outstanding Sales Leader of the Year for the company. And so then they put me in charge of the region for the independent side. And so I had the states of Utah, Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska. It was basically like, if I was my own broker dealer, I would have been like in the top 10 broker dealers in the U.S. And so did that for about 4.5 years. Had success, but just all that travel just was not my thing. Being away from home, being away from my kids was just too much. And so got back into just personal practice. And so moved out to Spokane, Washington with my wife. That's where she was originally from. There's an opportunity to kind of take over a practice out here, and took that opportunity. And fast forward, here I am today.
Well, yeah, you've had a pretty storied career so far at Ameriprise, or just in general. Was there a person or a book or an event that inspired you when you were younger, Byron, to make you so driven?
It was my grandfather. Yeah. So, like my grandfather probably got that from his grandfather, his dad. So, immigrant, coming over, trying to make it happen in the U.S., and they ran a very successful restaurant in downtown Portland, which was not a fancy restaurant. The success of it was basically the connection to the community. So they were down in the industrial area of Portland, and had made really strong connections with the telephone company and ESCO. And a lot of those people just would, have basically breakfast, lunch, and dinner there. And so that was his success. And he taught me just hard work, where, it was, I remember, here's an example. I remember wanting to go to Kevin Duckworth camp. So Kevin Duckworth was kind of a big deal in Portland at the time, Portland Trailblazer. And I was, Jerome Cruzy was going to be there, and Terry Porter. And I was like in 7th grade. He said, well, yeah, I'll totally do it. All you have to do is, work on the rental properties, and you'll have the money in just a few months, maybe even a few weeks, depending on how much you work. And so I was like, I had knocked it out in 3-4 weeks, just working on the different properties for him. And I remember clearing out blackberry bushes at one of the properties, and one of the tenants came out, and she was like, are you old enough to be doing that? And I was like, I don't really know. I'm just trying to get money for Kevin Duckworth camp. So I'm good.
Shut up. You're doing what damn work.
And she was like, well, I don't think you're old enough to be doing this. And who hired you? I'm like, well, John Gega hired me. He's your landlord. And I'm sure it's fine. And she's like, oh, okay. And she was quiet, but it's just like, I probably would, maybe I was bloody, I don't know, from the blackberry bushes or something. But I mean, that was the mindset. You just jumped in and you just got it done.
Yeah.
And so that's just, that's what I remember. And he's always, that was always my inspiration from him.
When did he pass away, Byron?
2006. Yeah.
Okay. What's interesting is there's two common themes that I see that I didn't expect in doing the show here. Is one is and you don't qualify in this one, but there's a lot of very successful people from small towns, but then there's also a lot of very successful people who have grandmas and grandfathers who are their role models, who inspired them. And I see that a lot. I didn't expect the small town thing, and I didn't expect the grandparents to be such an inspiration for so many successful people. There's obviously a tie there. I mean, there's something to do with having that. I think small town is that kind of communion, that community that you have, that jumping in, helping others. And then I think having a grandfather or grandmother who's an inspiration is more of there's that legacy aspect. They're really trying to push things on you and teach you things, because they kind of realize, eventually their time is running out, and they want to keep that gene of driven and being, of drive and discipline and hard work going in their family lineage. So, well,
no, that's totally true. I remember my grandfather saying, we have a brand, so don't mess it up.
Oh, I like that. I got to write this down. All right. So just give me a time frame. I don't care if it's the last year or two, but in the recent past, what is one of the greatest learnings you've gotten?
Recent past greatest learnings. I mean, gosh, one of the I'm reading a book right now. I think I mentioned this to you before. It's called The Noticer, and it's more of a reminder than I guess a new learning, but it's about perspective, and just knowing that your perspective is your perspective, but it's not the only perspective, and going into communication or just any type of event and having the perspective that I have a perspective right now. I'm aware of my perspectives. However, there's multiple people in the room that probably have a different perspective than me, and just seeking to make sure that you understand what that perspective is.
And that's by who is that? Andy Andrews?
Andy Andrews, yeah.
Do you know you referred me to him or recommended his book? I think it was The Traveler's Gift, long time, probably 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's a good book too.
That's a great book. I think and Aubrey might have. Did Aubrey read that too?
Aubrey read that too. So she might have referred it to you, because I know you did some coaching with her too. So it might have been.
Oh, I forgot about that. I did, didn't I?
Yeah.
One of you guys did. So when you're looking at that, looking at your perspective and understanding life is all about perspective. And remember the Hiram Smith, the guy who started the Franklin Planner Company, when he talked about the belief windows we all carry in front of us?
I don't remember that, but it makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
That we have that plate glass window. He described it as, and we don't really see life as life truly is. We see it through the lens of our belief window. And that thing's always in front of us at all times. We see through it, and we have these belief and expectations and wisdom and experiences and prejudices and values and principles written on that. So we kind of filter things through that. And that's why two people can look at the exact same things and come out with a completely different perspective. And I think that'd be a really good book. I think I'm going to order that book, because I think, especially in today's society, it's when there's so much divisiveness, or at least, I don't know if there's more divisiveness than there ever has been, but definitely it's exposed more, because we have a lot of fringe people, and we have this corporate media that likes to keep people separated. So we definitely do see more of it. We notice more of it. But it's really good to understand other people's perspective, probably more so now than any time in my lifetime, anyway.
Well, and it's just walking into a situation and being self-aware. So you think about successful people, and one of the things that I got taught by you and other leaders was just, going into a situation and just, pausing and making sure that you take reference of what's actually there.
Right.
And, don't go in with your agenda. And I even teach that to leaders a lot today, where they're like, I have this great agenda for this meeting, or I have this great agenda to bring up with the staff person. And I'm like, I want to go in with an agenda. I'm like, oh no, this is perfect. I'm like, I don't know if that's going to be perfect. And then you might want to just go in and seek to understand.
Yeah. Do you remember when I was out in Portland? Oh my goodness, maybe 15 years ago. I wasn't even working with you at the time. I think it was Portland. It must have been Portland. I was doing something for work out there for a while, and you and Aubrey had me over for dinner, and we played apples to apples.
That was in Seattle.
That was Seattle. Okay.
Yeah, I think you were doing something for Neil Taylor.
Okay, maybe so. Yeah. But that's when you introduced. I was there. We were having some drinks and playing. We played apples to apples and had dinner, and then you're like, dude, have you ever watched this Band of Brothers? I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. You're like, we're like four. Yeah, you guys were like 3 or 4 episodes into it, and you said, let's watch it. It was on HBO, I think. And we sat and watched that episode. I'm like, let's go through another one. And I fell in love with that. That's my favorite to this day. That is my favorite all time movie, film, show, whatever. It's a miniseries, obviously. But I remember I was flying back, and I remember getting to the airport. I think I flew into Denver on the way home, but I could be wrong. But anyway, at the airport, I bought the book and read it by Stephen Ambrose. And That's still, I watch that series at least once every year. So anybody out there who wants to just watch a fantastic World War II movie, it's about 20, 25 years old. So it's not like a black and white, probably the most realistic war movie of all time. And just learn leadership and life lessons. Go to, I think it's on Netflix or Amazon Prime now.
I think it is. And so, yeah, it was, who was it? Tom Hanks and
Steven Spielberg.
They did Saving Private Ryan. And then they found out about this airborne group that got scattered in the wind behind enemy lines. And like so many of them survived. And they're like, what the heck? And it's like this easy company. And they found out it was the leader. The guy gets promoted. And they knew they had a short window where they could interview these gentlemen and then play that next clip about what had happened. And because it's, it's based off a true story, obviously there's probably fictional components to it, but it's, it is, really truly about leadership. And it's about, that, I just love watching, I can't remember what his name, Captain Winters.
Yeah, Major Dick Winters.
Yeah. He starts out lieutenant, becomes captain, becomes major all through the conflict. And you just see why. And like even his, people who, he led said, we don't know how he survived because he always led from the front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he went on to have a storied career in the Korean War as well. And I think he died not that many years ago.
Yeah, I think so. So that was, it's a great series. And I do believe it's on Netflix or Prime or something like that. I'm sure you can find it for free somewhere because it is, 20 plus years old at this point. But,
and the soundtrack's amazing to that movie. I mean, it's haunting.
Oh, okay.
And they've done the sound. Have you seen the Pacific as well as the other one, the newest one?
I watched a few episodes of the Pacific. I just never really got into it.
I've watched it twice. I never connected with it. And the newest one is it's about the Air Force or I guess it was Army Air Corps or whatever they had. It's good. But nothing's been this, and it's the same. It's Hanks and Spielberg for both of those two. It just didn't make the same connection as Band of Brothers did. They tried too hard to mimic it, but that was so perfect. I don't think they could everything from there was going to fall flat, or at least flat.
Well, I think the interviews of the real, the guys that were actually there, Captain Winters and the lieutenants and all of these guys actually interviewing them and then showing, Bastogne and then showing that scene. And it's just like, and hearing them talk about it and hearing them weep and, just the emotional connection to that, I think was what made that really interesting, but also just the leadership, it's like the one leader, always is missing. And me and my son used to joke, I got to go make a call because, he would just leave the front lines and go to the back and make a call. And like, who the hell are you calling? We're surrounded.
That's right. Norman Dyke. It was Norman Dyke. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is not a real character. I found out later. They comprise like several different leaders that were like that. Yeah. And because they didn't want to, wreck somebody. I
just watched an article or a YouTube special on Sobel. Remember Captain Sobel? Played by David Schwimmer from Friends. That he was a lot like that, but yet they really over dramatized the negative side of him as well. Because a lot of those guys to this day say, other than Captain or Major Winters, Sobel was the reason why we survived the war because he was so hard on us during training.
Yeah.
But they had to have a villain, so they had to villainize him a little more. So.
Yeah.
Byron, this is one of the
series.
Yeah, it's a great one. This is a question that I ask everyone. It's kind of a good heart question, I guess. Is what would you say is one of the most difficult things you've ever gone through in your life, and then how did you break through that and scale the wall of that challenge?
Hardest thing that I went through is like so many hard things. I don't know if I have a specific thing that I could point out as the hardest thing. There's been a lot of hard things.
Give me
just
one.
your first,
Just give one example.
your first year, and starting with American Express, it was like such a hard year. Like, who would do that now? Who would start at a company, get paid minimum wage,
$19,000 a year is my salary.
And get excess release. So if you did better than that, you'd get paid. But you were paying expenses the whole time. So you had your bars program, all that stuff was being expensed to you, and your leads and everything. And then you just had to call these car leads, which were people who had been mail solicited and had requested further information, and just getting that all down and having the the strength to get up every day to do that, and to have a check after 2 weeks that was $150 and be like, okay, I really need to make this happen. I need to get more initial meetings in, and how many people would do that? Well, I don't think many people would do it at all now.
No.
Even if there wasn't a do not call list, I think that it's there's a level of commitment that you have to make. Like, there's a motivation. I was definitely motivated to help people. I was motivated to make money. All of those motivations occurred, but to get up every morning, show up at 8:00, stay till 8:00, that just required an immense amount of discipline. And I just, a year and a half later, you're kind of through the storm of it. Right. And then you start to say, okay, now I can start to see that this is building. But at first you're just going week to week.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where I think it's in life. I've talked about this, and Evis, this idea, but the concept that cows run away from storms and buffalo run toward the storm. I think when you do something difficult like that, like, you did it, I did it. Well, it was IDS Financial Services back when I started, but taking that first year, and like you said, you're there at 7 or 8 and you're there till 7 or 8 every night. And it's not like when you're at work, you're doing a lot of fun things. You are on the phone, cold calling or dialing these leads on a consistent basis. I think when you start your life off by running toward the storm like that, it's a much better life than those people who start off and run away from the storm and avoid those difficult things. And I think there's a lot of in the financial industry now, I think there's a bit of a gap, or there's something missing where there's not, for the new people coming in, there's not that acid test like there was then. There's not that almost a self-hazing routine where you have to put yourself through, it's like hell week, but it's like hell year for 12 to 18 months. And but when you do that, when you run toward the storm and go through that hell like that, man, does it change your life, eh? I mean, can you imagine if you hadn't done that?
I can't imagine if I hadn't done it, but I can't imagine doing it again either.
No, I can't imagine. I would never do that again. No.
It's like I'd probably SEAL say the same thing. Like, yeah, I'm glad I went through SEAL training, but I'm never doing that again.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Not that this is SEAL training, but it's definitely one of those things where it's emotionally trying, it's physically trying. You face so much rejection. Like, I think that's like one of the things that you just, like, people can say whatever they want to me, and I just don't. It doesn't faze me.
No.
I just doesn't. I remember people telling me, this isn't right. I don't want to do this. I don't know why you're calling me, all this stuff, and getting like all angry. And I would say, whoa, Brian, you've got a pretty good understanding of what I do, though, right? And they say, well, yeah, I know exactly what I do. Oh, great. So, I'm just trying to help people get in a better financial position, correct? And yeah, we totally get that. Okay, great. So who should I be having this conversation? And I just paid $7.50 for that lead. I was getting another lead. That was my only goal. Can I get another lead? Get a name and number, call them up and say, hey, Brian told me that I should give you a call, that you're looking at your finances. I wanted to see what I could do to help. I
don't think I ever used that technique. I forgot those leads were $7.50 a piece.
And then they went to $10, like inflation back then. Crazy.
I was out of the game by then.
Yeah, and then Massa would recycle them, and charge us $1.50 for them. That guy.
Well, he started selling placemats when he was about 17 years old, didn't he? Remember the?
Yes. That guy.
So, folks, we're talking about Frank Moss again, and go back to one of the previous episodes. He tells this story of he started off his career when he was young, selling customized or advertisement placemats that you see in some diners and things like that. Anyway, yeah, he was a good guy to teach you how to manage money and how to make money.
Yeah, no, he's a penny pincher for sure.
One of the most effective leaders I've ever had the opportunity to work alongside. So,
I was glad to work with him too.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about that, look at the connections that, over the years, 28 years of knowing each other. I think about how many connections we have that are like from people who are no longer with the company, people who went off and started their own companies, to people who are currently with the company or retired or doing coaching or whatever. I think when you go through a mutual challenge like we did back in the day at American Express or IDS, even if you weren't alongside that person, even if you were a year or 2 or 5 years before them or after them, you share a bond. Because you understand, you can relate to what that first year was really like for everybody who went through it. I don't care. Nobody got through that first year without a lot of scars, a lot of thick skin, and some bruised knuckles.
And that's the other thing. You saw a lot of people leave too. Like that was like one of the hardest things with you.
They rang the bell, yep, and got out.
Yeah. You just see them with their box and walking out. You're like, can I have your leads?
Well, I can see. I was almost that guy walking out. I remember honestly my first year, because my first 6 months at Okemos, Michigan, by Lansing, I got in. Came out of college, got the job at IDS, and there were 29 advisors in my office. I think at the time. After the first 4 to 6 months, I was number 29. I was ranked I was the bottom of the bottom, and I remember thinking, okay, how many weeks do you have to work to draw unemployment? And this is my first job ever. I've never quit a job. I've never been fired, even to this day. Well, I guess I quit American Express to start this, but I remember thinking, I asked my brother, he goes, you don't get unemployment if you quit. They have to fire you. I'm like, shit. So I remember literally like within that time frame, I had read something by Dwayne Dyer in one of his books, Erroneous Zones or something like that. And he said a common quote that I've heard 1,000 times. It's never lonely. It's never lonely along the extra mile or something like that. And one of the things I didn't like, Byron, was that number. I was 29 out of 29 advisors. So everybody was focused on me. The managers, they wanted to sit in my appointments. They wanted to do extra role play with me. And so they kind of and I hated that. I'm not a guy who likes that extra. Like, leave me alone is my thing, but leaving me alone didn't work. So they did the right thing, but I didn't feel comfortable with that smothering. And I remember shaving one day and that quote came to my head. And I thought, all right, so if I don't want this attention, I want to be left alone, then I need to go further than anybody else. I need to pick up my game and study this. I got to study this career as if it's a science. And so I started reading books on sales and leadership and personal development and marketing. And I jumped into it head first. And that's really what, saved my career and got me to today. But I was almost that guy with the box walking out the office, probably more than once. But
yeah, it's interesting. I never doubted myself. I doubted myself when I got into leadership. That definitely happened. But as far as a practitioner, I was like, I was born for this.
Yeah, some people
not trying to be not trying to be like a egotistical or anything like that. I just knew, like I knew inside my soul that this is what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
and part of it is you got to figure out what your calling card is. And I love that exercise. And I remember going through it and. My calling card got pulled and it was empowering others to do great things. And I've just always hung my hat on that. Like, okay, every day I got to get up. My job today is to empower others to do great things. So if I'm communicating with Aubrey, what am I doing to empower her to do great things today? If I have a conversation with one of the kids, what am I doing to empower them to do great things today? Running across staff, different people, every interaction, just having that as your filter. You talked about lenses. And so just putting that on as a lens and that's really helped me a lot.
That's such a simple I'm going to call it a model, for lack of a better word, to live by. And I was talking to a couple of clients already this morning on one was for their business and one was for their life. I said, we all aspire for something. I mean, I believe this, and this is basically from Marshall Goldsmith, who I think is the GOAT of my industry. He talks about you have to aspire to be a certain person. Then you have, ambition to accomplish certain goals. Then you act on whatever you need to, your lead measurable activities that you do daily to accomplish the things you have an ambition for and to become the person you aspire to become. And I think to have any of those, you have to have some type of like you have, empowering others to do something, to do great things today. Mine is inspire the world to strive, love, and live. And when you have that as a base point and as a lens or a framework from which to watch and to observe life and to impact life, and when you make decisions based on that, life just turns out better. Because we walk through life, I think anyway, most people do. It's kind of like they're on cruise control. And they're seeing life through their lens, but they can't really, a lot of people don't really take the time to not judge, but to evaluate what they're seeing and why they're seeing it and what they're doing and why they're doing what they're doing. And I think when you have some type of framework like that's kind of what I do. Everything I do is predicated on empowering others to do great things today. Dude, when you do that and keep it that simple, it's kind of hard. It's pretty fail-proof.
Well, it does two things. It creates self-awareness, which we know is paramount principle to being successful. Whatever you're doing, you have to be self-aware. But then two, it's a grounding point, right? So as things get thrown at you and, distractions, so to speak, or just, whatever you want to call it, communication, things like that, if you're grounded and you have that root system already in there, you're just not going to get ripped out of the soil and just get tossed around. So you're going to have that, principles, your principles, values, and beliefs are solid. And so you're in alignment, you're facing that true north. And so you are trying to act as your ideal self.
I like that. That's at 35 minutes into the show. I think I'm going to pull that one out and study that one a little bit more. When you look at right now, your life, where you're at, I don't even know how old you are anymore, Byron. You weren't that much younger than I was when I was only 30 years old when I was in. I mean, I don't know. You must be 50.
50. I'll be 50. I'm 51 right now. I'll be 52 in December. So it's kind of, my years are always weird because I think, I'm 52. I'm like, no. You're not 52 till the very end of the year.
A good thing to do is I do this 6 months, but like right now I turned 58 in March, like in sometime in the late summer, or probably more early fall, I start calling myself 59 already. That way when my birthday hits, I'm like, I've been 59 for 6 months. It works really well. But age isn't really, I don't really think about age in that concept. So like right now, you look at your life right now at 51, 52 years old. What do you consider to be a win for you? What do you, when this happens or you do this or you observe somebody else doing it, what is something you can say, hey, that's a win?
So like right now I'm in charge of, coaching and developing our newer advisors. And so when they, message me back through Teams and say, hey, that, prep that we did for that meeting was awesome. And they, explain it to the client just the way that you'd walked me through it. And they totally thought it was awesome. And, we, now moving forward with the recommendations or doing planning or whatever, that always like just, it's just like just fills my bucket, like it just feels good. It's even greater with your kids, right? Yeah. So if Briella or Gavin says that, it's just like tenfold more. Aubrey's the same, right? So you're just that's what's empowering others to do great things. I mean, that just that's what it is.
Well, when you see the light bulb go off in someone, and you had a part of that light bulb, there's something magical about that. There's something transformational, and I'm sure the people, the clients you've worked with, the people you've coached and trained over the years, your kids, and obviously Asher, you probably learn as much from them as they learn from you, because if you're observant and you have that self-awareness and you watch the people you're developing and helping to develop and helping to grow, you almost pick up more than they do sometimes.
Well, that's one of the tricks you taught me. I call it a trick, but you taught me, if you want to really connect with somebody, have them teach you something.
Yeah.
Have them teach you about something. So I've done that with Asher. So I've now become proficient at this game called Fortnite. And I don't do it because I'm, like, wow, I really need to play Fortnite. But I just wanted to be the best teammate I could be for Asher. And so that he would want to, play with me. And it's interesting because, I played video games obviously growing up, but I mean, I'm in the Gen X generation, like where video games got transformed to the point where we're like, totally different, but still the same. And so first shooter games aren't new to me, but still having him teach me everything and explain to me how this is working or do different things, I can feel that connection happening with him. Mm-hmm. And it's also, he's distant from me. He's, 5 hours away. So he's over on the west side of the state and I'm on the east side of the state. So it's also a connection point where now, because of the technology, I can log in on the Xbox, he logs in, and we're able to actually talk to each other. And so you have this time where you're actually, you can't see him, but you can see him in the game.
Yeah, you see
you know what I'm saying? But you still have that connection. And, that's, part of what I try to do with him is just really make sure that I have a really strong relationship, because at some point, this being a grandparent now, that you're going to have to deliver a tough message. And if you don't have that relationship bucket, you don't have that connection, you don't have all that stuff, then it's just not going to work. It's not going to go over well, right? You're not going to be able to do anything.
Right. I didn't know you could. I knew you could play video games like that. So you see his avatar, but you hear his voice.
Correct. Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. Well, Jack, my oldest grandson's only 4. He'll be 4 in 2 months, so he's not quite playing Fortnite yet. But I remember Dawson played Fortnite. Maybe he still does. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's been around
game.
For a bit.
Been long
forever. Been around for. Yeah, I mean, originally when we had downloaded the game, I believe Gavin was playing it. So, we've had it on our system for a while. I just, just started recently, maybe the last year or two, because he got into it and made that connection. Even I was like, gosh, I want to learn how to play, but I just hate it because I'm just not very good at it. So she can see that connection where he'll, text. His mom will text him and say, hey, Asher wants you to get on and play with him if you have time. It's like, oh, of course I will. And so
well, that's a modern day of connection right there. I mean, it's without the ability to connect on a daily basis, face to face, that's a really good secondary choice.
And that is probably like one of the biggest failures I see with a lot of leaders is they fail to make connections, but still want to lead people. And I just know, that's what I did when I first started, 1998, and, just driving the numbers and trying to, drive people to do stuff, but didn't have a connection with them. Mm-hmm. So, how well did that work?
Well, it turned out okay.
Well, I mean, it didn't until I got taught to make the connection, and so I think I've talked about this before with you, but that concept of, relationship tension versus task tension. And, so many leaders just want to increase task tension and get people to take action and to, move forward with whatever the agenda is that they want to move forward with. It be, more appointments or more sales or whatever, but they don't have a relationship. So there's this relationship tension that exists. It's like they're the leader and I'm the, follower or, subordinate or whatever you want to call it. And until you break that down, that relationship tension, make that connection, whether it be having them teach you about something or just getting to know them better or doing something outside of work, you're just not going to have the ability to really influence their behavior because you just simply do not have that relationship connection. And so that tension is going to exist, and that tension exists. That person's, not always going to be truthful with you and honest about the things that they're struggling with.
Well, do you think has that changed over time? I mean, I know back when like you and I were in our careers, there was a different style of leadership that no longer works anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it's changed though, because even then, even being a hard ass, it didn't work as well as when I started to create, relationships. I mean, I remember taking over the Seattle office and basically being told that I was taking over Beirut And I was like, okay, that's a neat analogy. And going in there, and the advisors were all isolated. They were all kind of just doing their own thing. There's 30 plus advisors in the site. And I remember doing Monday morning meeting, and people asking me, is it required for us to go to the Monday morning meeting? I said, it is not required for you to do anything. And they're like, what? No, we're not doing that. That didn't work before. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to provide value. If you don't think I'm providing value, then don't attend the meeting. And so like the first meeting I did, I think I had probably 4 advisors. The next week, 12 advisors. The next week, 20 advisors. The next week, I had every one of them. And within 4 weeks, I had everyone showing up to their one-to-ones. I remember you telling me this too. Like if someone doesn't show up to your one-to-one, it's because they don't find value in the meeting.
Where was that office?
It started out in the PI building, and then we moved to Stewart Street. So, and I was only there for a year and a half, but it basically went from one of the worst offices in the company to the top office in the company. Rethke was my right hand, and just super good guy. I love that guy.
I do too.
Yeah, he was super instrumental in all of that too. So I don't take credit for all of it, but part of it is just culture. I remember learning very early on that when you can change the culture, and the culture goes from authoritarian to relationship based and value based, you can't be angry about it. And no one was required to be there. No one was required to show up. I just took away all the requirements. Now it's all about you're making that choice. So you can't blame me anymore. And that just completely changed the culture. And it was just really great. All of those, a lot of those advisors are super successful now. And so that's one of the things that I'm, very proud of what happened with that office.
Was Dave Dick in that group?
No, that was the Vancouver office when I met Dave.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Justin Samples, Dave Dick, and Eric Griff were my leaders there. All were fantastic guys.
Oh, they're great guys, yeah. I forgot. Yeah, Justin was part of that group. I remember when it must have been in Vancouver then, because I met Dave, and I think I met Justin. I think you brought me in to do some work. It must have been Vancouver, because yeah. I remember the day I met Justin and Dave. Well, Dave picked me up from the airport.
Yeah, that would make sense. I would always send him to do stuff like that.
Yeah, he did, and he brought his wife and 3 daughters with him, and they took me to lunch before I even came to the office.
He's super good dude.
He's great.
Justin's super good dude too.
Yeah, Dave's been on the show twice, and Justin's been on the show. Did a great job. Yeah, Justin's an awesome guy. So I was talking to Dave this morning, and he mentioned something you taught him. He called it puppy love. Can you explain that a little bit to the member out there listening?
Well, where it came from was more of the idea of personal power versus position power, and that concept. And so, what I was attempting to do, explaining, I called it puppy training, not puppy love, but that's good. Was that when you work on personal power versus relationship power, you're more focused in on rewarding people for doing the right thing. So with a position power, as we think about somebody like Captain Winters, he was the captain, right? So he had that position. So in the Army, that position carries a lot of weight, right? So if I tell any subordinate to do a task or to do an order and they fail to do it, they could be court-martialed. So it's probably more severe position power, kind of extreme versus somebody who's a manager or leader in an organization. But still, people use position power all the time, and that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. The reason Captain Winters was such a good leader, I believe, was that he used personal power. So he created a connection. And so what I talked about, very simple example, was when I was training my dog Henry and teaching him to first go to the bathroom. I was working with a dog trainer, and she taught me to reward him and find him doing things right versus trying to find him doing things wrong. And so it's really hard to find people doing the right things. You got to work at it. It's not an easy thing to do. So, take them outside, put them on the grass, say, hey, Henry, go potty. Henry, go potty. And so finally he goes potty. Boom, he gets peanut butter. And he's a black lab, so he enjoyed the peanut butter. Next day, or maybe later that day, did it again. A little bit of time, he figures it out, peanut butter again. Eventually, it's like, go outside, potty. That he's like peeing on command, and getting the peanut butter. He's so good that at one point he was faking going to the bathroom, and the dog trainer said reward it anyways. But give him that peanut butter, because he's doing what you want, and you do not want him, obviously going to the bathroom in the house. And so he never went to the bathroom in the house. Only dog I've never had that issue.
That's great.
And it was so rapid how quickly he learned. And what I realized, and this is a training I gave Dave and everybody, is that if you're going to teach people to do the right things, you have to find them doing the right things. When you find them doing the wrong things, it doesn't help them figure out what the right thing is. They just feel, shame. They might feel, let down, but it doesn't build their self-esteem. And if you think about what do you need to do to get somebody to take risk, and you have to have a high self-esteem. And so if I find somebody, I'm just consistently, rewarding them for good behavior, even little stuff, then that starts to build their self-esteem. Maybe I'm the only person that's doing it, but, praising them in public and, giving them little cards saying, hey, great job this week, but, pointing those things out on a consistent basis lets them know that they're doing the right things. And then that builds that self-esteem. Somebody with high self-esteem will take way more risk than somebody with low self-esteem. And if you think about what you want from your team or from people that you're working with, is you want them to think outside the box. You want them to come up with new ideas. You want them to challenge the thinking, and you want them to do that so that they're taking some risks, because if they don't do that, they won't be successful for you. And so I think that's what Dave's talking about, is that, when I met him, he had a military background, very successful military career, very good leadership, that core leadership skills, but very much position power. And, I had to get him to stop being a check player. And this is how I taught him how to be more finesse, was, to build those relationship skills, go with the personal power.
Well, it's definitely worked for him. That's for sure. He's done some amazing things out there. So I want to stop for a minute. I want to share with the audience real quickly. When Byron and I were just met each other, we were working together a little bit in the Phoenix Inn. One of the books that we went through, in fact, the only book we went through, was a book called Leadership Secrets of Attila the Hun. Probably the premier, in my opinion, by Wes Roberts, Dr. Wes Roberts. A book that talks about, it's really, I don't know, Byron, we both have read a lot of books on leadership. I still consider this the Bible of leadership for me. And when I work with an executive or a leader in leadership capacity, that's the first thing I have them do, is go buy this book. And I go through that with them. I don't go through every chapter. I spend a lot of time on the introduction because I think there's a lot of value in there. So before we started airing today, folks, Byron and I were talking, and I said, I'm looking over at my bookshelf, and that book, the original book from I can tell you, Byron, it was 1998. Because I have it doctored or written in here. And Byron said, guess what's on my desk right now? So the same copy. Now my copy is, the front page is coming off. I have it taped, and the inside looks like a Swiss watch because there's so many words and diagrams. But here, Byron, I'm going to share at the end of the introduction. This is Chapter Learnings from Byron Gega, 11/9/98. November 9/98, we sat down, and I had you say, what are the learnings you got out of this introduction? Here were your learnings that you got. That first-year advisors are loosely bound when they arrive here. They're not a tribe yet. They're loosely bound. Number 2, you need to always choose your battles wisely. That was your second learning. Number 3 was Attila gained respect by working in the trenches. He was not an ivory tower or field general. Number 4, Attila stayed humble. Number 5, we always have to have an eye for detail and practice swift justice. Number 6, we have to give our people a clear and precise direction. And number seven, even Attila got discouraged at times, and that's okay. And number 8, Attila was a check player and a finesse skater. He had both courage and consideration. This is literally your learnings that you told me on 11/9/98.
Yeah, courage and consideration.
Courage and consideration.
Gotta have the courage. I forgot about that. Courage and consideration.
That's one I haven't used in a while either. I got to pull that back out. But that's funny because every time I do coach somebody on this book, which is quite often, every time I recommend it, I think of those days at the Phoenix Inn, sitting in the lobby, just going through basic stuff, man, stripping it down and building it back up again.
Drinking some nasty coffee because it was free.
Some nasty coffee. That was one of the best hotels. I was there for, I think I lived there for 6 or 7 months. So I was there so often that I would rearrange the furniture because they had it where they put me in a suite that had a bedroom and then a living room. And I liked it the opposite. I didn't spend a lot of time in the bedroom. I spent more time in the bedroom, but I had a better view or something. So I had the TV and everything, like the bed moved out in the living room and had it all rearranged. And they did everything for me. And almost every month I won, guest of the month. Well, yeah, of course I did. I was there every day. Of course. And they'd bring a basket of, like coffees and chocolates and, stuff like that to me. But, this is my favorite question to ask, Byron, and that is, I call it the time machine question. If I were to fly out right now to Washington and you and I were to jump into my time machine, and we can go back to any time in your future, in your past, and you're going to sit down and you're going to talk to that younger version of Byron Gega, and I'm just going to sit back and observe and take notes. What advice would you give yourself, or what words of wisdom would you share with yourself that you wish you would have known then?
I think a lot of it, I think one concept that I didn't learn till later in leadership was that you can't coach desire. So there's some people that just, they don't have a desire. You can motivate them for periods of time, but you can't, they're not interested. So, and an example that I think of as, I'll call out Gavin. We'll probably end up watching the podcast or listening to the podcast later. But there's this time where, he was into basketball and he was a good player, good shot, had all of those things. But I could tell that he just didn't quite have the desire. And I would talk to him about this quite a bit. I'd be like, when I played in high school and whatnot, I would shoot in the rain. Like I would just go outside, I would shoot in the rain, and to the point where my dad would try to get me to stop shooting, so he'd pull the car into the driveway and kind of block the part of the area where I could shoot. I'd shoot anyways. I just would make sure I didn't miss I would hustle and tip the ball over the car so I didn't hit his car. But I still was out there. And that's just where I was. And then he goes, well, I have that. I go, well, I need you to start to practice on your, show me that you have that desire. And so he buys his basketball program. I can't remember what it cost. We'll just say it was like $100. And he's like, I'm going to go do this program. I'm going to show you that, but I need you to give me $100 to pay for this program. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I go, but what I will do is if you go out there for the next 2 weeks and you practice at least 6 times, I'll pay you the $100. He was done. Fair. Totally good deal. 2 weeks go by. How many times do you think he went out there?
I don't know.
0. Just didn't have a desire. And I told him that. I said, hey, you just don't have the desire. That's not your thing. It's okay. It's okay for it not to be your thing. It was my thing. Just because it was my thing doesn't mean it has to be your thing. And, fast forward, he gets into making ties. He wants to make these 7-fold ties. And there's nothing that I could do to stop him from learning about how to make 7-fold ties. Like we drove him to this little sewing shop place with these 60-year-old grandmas so that he could learn how to do these certain stitches and how to work these certain machines, because that was a sewing class that he wanted to go to.
Right.
And now you fast forward and here he is, graduated from Central St. Martin's in London, which is one of the top, fashion design schools. And, he's making it happen in London now. And I don't have to call up and be like, hey, are you going to get up and get that going?
So he found his niche, he found his place in the circle.
Right. Yeah. And that's my, example of that. But that's one of the things that I just wish I would have learned earlier in my career. Because I think I used up too much of my time on people that just I didn't deserve it.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we've always we've been taught, I think you have been as well, is that, to accomplish a true set or a skill set, you have to have knowledge, skill, and desire. You have to have the knowledge of what to do, the skill and how to do it, and you have to have the desire, the why to do it. And, you can teach knowledge, you can train skill, but you cannot give someone the desire. You can inspire them a little bit, but typically when you do that, you're going to
short-lived.
It's short-lived. Or they're going to say, "Yeah, you've inspired me, but the skill set I'm working on or the task I'm working is not what I have to do. I want you got me to do one. You trained me, but not to do this thing. Now you've inspired me to do this thing over here." Well, like you did with Gavin. I remember, I don't know what year it was, but watching that TV show Grimm, and Gavin was on there.
Yeah.
I remember that. I took a picture of the TV screen. I'm like, I told Dawson, "Hey, I know that guy." And then I think I sent it to you and Aubrey saying, "Look who I just saw on TV."
Yeah.
That's cool. What's next for you?
Good question. I think I'm in a good spot right now where, there's an opportunity for me to use a lot of my leadership skills in Aubrey's business. So she took over a really well-established salon in Spokane, and, making a lot of cultural shifts there and things. And it's just, I can feel the energy changing already, and it's fun to be a part of that. It's also fun to be a part of it with her, right? Sure. So it's even more rewarding to do that with her involved. I don't know what's next for me. I mean, I've talked to you about this before. I've talked about writing out a short little book that's really basic, and just, maybe just having that and giving that to Briella and Gavin, and they're the only ones to get copies of it. And then eventually they can give it to Asher, but it's just kind of all these little tidbit leadership learnings that I have in my head, and different things I've learned from, Mosset, or from you, or from, Ray Kelly, or, Ed Kelly, or just different people that have, taken the time to pour into me over the years, and kind of, maybe I'll just do something like that. No, I've kind of messed around with that a little bit, but I haven't done much with it. So
you told me about that probably not this past time when we talked, but I think a year or so ago when we talked. You mentioned that to me.
Yeah, it's something like that. I think that would be good.
I think that's a great idea, because going at it with the expectation it'll be published and the masses will see it will help you to put your heart into it and really speak more truth in your true experiences. And I think that's when a book could become a really incredible seller, when you just write it for a select audience. In this case, your family, your lineage. Right. And what does Asher call you?
He calls me Dida, so that's Croatian for grandpa.
Dida. How do you spell Dida?
Deda.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's what I call my grandpa too.
Deda. Dida.
Yeah.
I'm going to start calling you Dida. I'm going to put you on my phone as Dida.
That's fine. I think everybody should call me Dida. I'm trying to convince Gavin to call me Dida, but he's not doing that. Oh. Briella calls me Dida like half the time. Maybe a little bit more than that.
That's a good name. You don't look like a Dida, though.
Not yet.
You look like a Gega. You look like a Gega. And you remind me of, you act like a Gega. That name fits you perfectly.
Yeah.
Kind of a little rough around the edges.
Every time you say that, I think of Mosset. Gega, come over here.
Oh man. So, okay. This question is kind of a net question. It catches anything that we might not have covered, but is there any question, Byron, that I did not ask that you wish I would have, or is there any final message you want to leave out there with that listener who could really use some wisdom?
If I think about just some stuff that we have uncovered, one of the big things that we always talked about, and this is not like a new saying, but the concept of A equals A. I think that's something that is really important right now. And, not letting people make reality into something that it's not, and, facing reality as it is, not as you wish it were. I think that concept is something that we need more of. I used to say, let's not make weirdness happen. Let's keep A equal to A. Because you start to drift off that path, and it has a lot of problems with building self-esteem, but also just executing the direction that you want to go. I think another concept that we haven't really talked about is just when you're working with somebody that you're trying to lead and develop. I always used to have 3 components that I was trying to work on with them, and I was trying to figure out which one needed the most work. And, it was IQ, EQ, and then I called it basketball IQ, but it's basically your technical skills, your technician skills. And so somebody could be really smart with a really low emotional intelligence, but good technical skills and not be successful. And you have to, be able to look at this, because a lot of people say, well, that gal's really smart. She's got really good technical skills. Why is she failing? I can't figure it out. It's most likely their emotional competency. Mm-hmm. And so you got to go in and, figure out, okay, the training that I need to work on with this person now is not their, I don't need them to read to get smarter about the subject or learn technical skills. I need to work on their, emotional intelligence, which is, very easy to work on. Just most people don't spend much time on it. And I think that was one of the concepts that I really worked on with a lot of leaders. So, because a lot of leaders get promoted because they're really smart. Mm-hmm. And they were really good at, the previous task or the previous, whatever leadership deal that they were in. They were definitely winning, and then they got put into a new role. But that new role required a higher level of emotional intelligence than they currently had or currently have. And so you got to work on that piece. And that's true of all of us. Like, I spend a lot of time working on my emotional IQ because when people, react to me, you don't want to react. You want a stimulus, pause, response, and have something that's very articulate and very calm. And that's what's going to help them, become a better person. And so, empowering others to do great things is that piece there too. And so that's a concept that, I don't think it's talked about a lot because I'm not sure why, but, there's lots of books about, increasing your technical skills in all sorts of areas. Like even you mentioned it when you were first starting, like how to be a better salesman, how to do this, but how many people read a book about how to be more emotionally competent?
Very few, 0.5% maybe, if that. I mean, it took me years until Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence, came out before I even heard of the concept.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So when you look back at your career, starting off from like the days in Portland, Oregon, Lincoln Center to today, which one of those 3 have you developed the most in yourself, do you think?
Oh, it's definitely the emotional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Emotional intelligence by far. I mean, whether it was going through, literally going through Leadership Secrets of Attila Hunt is that will build that. Plus your technical skills, But Goleman had a Harvard Business Review article about what makes a leader. And it talks about, the different types of emotional intelligence and, trying to figure out which one you might have a gap in and how you can develop that. And it's something that's much more developable than IQ, right?
Yeah.
I kind of make a joke, like the IQ is, the chip in the computer, the EQ is the software that runs it. So really good software will always trump, a chip. So, there's that concept of Apple's chips always not being as good as, the chips that were in the Dell computers. But the software was so good that, it was still faster. It was less cumbersome. And because it didn't have all these little things to allow other things to obviously connect to it. But that always resonated with me when I saw, Steve Jobs, he's, just an incredible person in that sense. Like, okay, this is why he did this. He realized that the IQ wasn't as important as the EQ.
Well, yeah, you think about how many incredibly intelligent people have tried, let's go with financial services, and been a financial advisor who failed out, or they never quite reached their potential. They may have struggled through the industry and stayed in it for 20, 30 years, but they performed much further or lower than their true peak level. And it was because of EQ. I mean, there were people in Lincoln Center. There was a guy that had a degree from Yale, I remember. I didn't coach him. I didn't train him, but I remember there was a guy from
Yale and Harvard. We had 2 of them.
Okay. Yeah. I'm like, wow. I'm not saying that they didn't become successful. I don't know, but they could. Didn't. What's that?
They did not.
I didn't want to say that, but I was based on what I knew back then. I assumed that. You got a guy from Central Michigan University over here with barely got through with a C average, and I'm trying to tell them, because I remember they weren't part of my team, but I did work with them on a couple things. But at that, it goes back to what you said earlier. You can't train the desire. You can't train that passion, that the drive, I guess, to learn and to grow. Then you get people like you that you're just, even though you were a bull in a china store, you were just ready to learn and to go to the next level. And that's an interesting aspect. When I look at like the lineage that we've had in the time frame that, obviously I was with Ameriprise for less than 5 years, or American Express, I'm sorry. But that company has put out some of the most incredible leaders I have ever seen in my life. Maybe it's just because that's my wheel well, that's my mothership, and I know a lot of people, but I don't even think that's the case. I think the training program that, was there when you were there, when I was there, when Rethke and Dave Dick and Justin were there, and some of those original advisors, I think that like Tony Mazzelli is a good example of that, that people who just went off and have been doing some amazing things, but based on the home that we all established within American Express or now Ameriprise Financial. So, there's something to be said about that hive of that organization, at least back then. And I think today it's a different organization with different training, but still the same concept. You bring some of the best people out from that organization.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I remember when I started, the equation was your personal growth plus your income is your total compensation.
Yeah. Who'd that come from? You know who that came from?
I have no idea.
Frank Mossett.
Was that Mossett?
That was Mossett. And the reason I know that is because he brought that up on the podcast a couple of years ago when he was on it. And I think that was his own deal.
Yeah, that's great.
I think when Hans sent Frank, Frank and I were kind of in the management group together at American Express, I was in Livonia running that office, and he was in Toledo running that office. And I think that was the sales pitch, I think, that Hans made to him, actually. He's like, hey, that is your total compensation package, your income, your paycheck, plus your personal growth. And you're going to get a lot of personal growth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. All right. Yeah. I think Mossett sold me on that one a couple times too.
That dude could sell anything to anyone.
But I still think it's a great concept. And I even brought that up, with the people at the salon that operates around, and I said, "Hey, here's our goal. Our goal is to provide you personal growth plus your income. That's going to be your total compensation. So, whether or not you stay with us or stay with us for 20 years, I hope that after that time frame, your personal growth has just been immensely changed."
Well, you can't take your income with you. And you can't guarantee income in a next position or next journey in your phase in your journey, but you can always take that personal growth with you. It's a lifelong pension. It really is.
Was it you or somebody? I feel like it was you that mentioned to me one time, because we were reading a bunch of books, and you're like, "Boy, you probably haven't read this many books since you were at the university." And I was like, "Gosh, yeah, I'm doing a lot of reading." You're like, "Do you know most people don't read after they go to school?"
Yeah.
I think it was you that told me that. Like there's like a study or something.
Yeah.
Through one of those weird studies that you do.
Sometimes I just make them up to help beat the song. No, I think the study is, and I'm not sure if this, I think it's the average person after college reads 3 books for the rest of their lives. 3 to 5 or 3 to 10. It's less than 10. I know that. It's either 3 to 5 or 3 to 10 or something like that. So it's 10 or less, but I think it's 3 to 5. It's insane. Wow. And you know what? I hear this so often, Byron. I still hear it. It just gets under my skin. I don't have time to read. I'm like, oh, geez. But I can look at your calendar and I can watch how much time you spend on social media or how much time you spend watching TV. I can see what time you get up in the morning, what time you go to bed. If I could really dissect someone's calendar and their activities, they could read 50 books a year if they chose to. And I get it. Yeah. Some people don't like to read, but with today's options, with podcasts, Audible books, there's get on and watch a TED video. You can learn from so many multiple sources just through your phone. It's carrying with it every single day. There's infinite wisdom and knowledge that you can get from just your phone or your laptop or your iPad. I mean, there's no excuses anymore. And I do believe that, real learning comes from hands-on. Yeah, I believe that. But you have to have a basis, and you have to have, by reading or listening to books or podcasts or Audible books or watching videos of TED, I call them the TEDx talks or TED Talks, you definitely get you get little lessons that connect the things that you learn while you're doing in the field work. Like, okay, now I understand what that is. Like when you even said today,
exactly,
personal power versus positional power, I knew exactly what you meant, but those two words connected with me. Like now I have words to put to that concept. And that's, I think, what a lot of learning is, and a lot of reading comes from. Can I ask you right now, before we wrap up, is there a book right now that you're reading that you would recommend to the audience, or one that you've read recently?
Well, I'm reading The Fountainhead, and I would obviously recommend The Fountainhead. I think it's a great story. Howard Rourke is one of my absolute, favorite fictional characters.
Amen.
I resonate with him on a lot of different levels, and I wish I could be more Howard Rourke sometimes. So that's one I'm going through right now. I'm doing a little book club with Gavin and Aubrey on that one. So nice. It's a little accountability to make sure that we do that. I've read the book before, but it's more of like, this is one of the things I think people also fail to do is they read a book and they feel like, oh, I've already read that. It's like, well, when you read it again, you're in a different space. You're in a different time. You're in a different, different concepts come out, and it's, reinforces old concepts, but new concepts will come out too. So I think that, rereading books is also something that I do quite often. I don't know if you tell me that or somebody else did, but I'm The Noticer. I've already read it. I'm reading it. I'll finish it this week. But just love that, going back and remembering about, your perspective is your perspective, and like just having that now, in your forefront. I think that's one of the things that books do is that I think like what you just said, Brian, where if you're reading something and then you're in a situation, it's very common for you to pull out something you just read or just learned into that situation. So if you're reading and learning stuff like that, it's just going to make all of those interactions so much more powerful.
Well, you're 100%. There is no downside. It's one of the few things you can do in life that there is literally no downside to doing it. There is only upside. Now, you might read a book and you feel like it was a waste of time, but there was probably something you learned and you got in there that you might not think is valuable now, but sometime in your subconscious, it'll come out to your conscious level. Right. Because we don't really forget anything we read or learn. It gets buried in there. Yeah. Hans always taught us that every fifth book, reread a book you've already read. Now, I haven't followed that to a T, but I do it quite often. I mean, I've read The Fountainhead, I think 5 times. I think Atlas Shrugged 3 or 4 times, and that book's hard to swallow once. Yeah. But to me, Fountainhead is much greater. It's a better book than Atlas Shrugged, I think. I relate more to it, even though I think Atlas Shrugged is needed more today in our society. I wish more people, and I think more people are reading. I know the sales of it went up dramatically a few years ago. But I think The Fountainhead is definitely one that I relate to. And as you said, Howard Rourke is one of my Howard Rourke, Charlie Bannon, and Jonathan Livingston Seigler are the 3 characters I related to most in books. I love Charlie Bannon. I know. And so, folks, that's a book called Calumet K, written in 1902 or something. But it was in the New York Times, I think, or was it? It was because back then you'd get the newspaper, right, and it just would come out every few days or every day. I'm not sure how the concept worked, but I remember reading about it, and I believe it was the New York Times, and it was the Daily Read or whatever, and then eventually it got published into a book. I didn't know that. Maybe I didn't. I forgot that. Yeah. Well, I have my original copy here from 30 years ago, and I literally opened it up, and my pages, the first, 250 some pages are out, and I opened it up, and I wrote, this is another one like Atlas or like Attila the Hun, where inside of it there's diagrams and words and highlights, and I wrote on the page 125, I wrote in the margins, sometimes you have to let them see a side of you they never want to see again. Yeah, I'm looking at my desk right now, and I've got Working with Emotional Intelligence on my desk over there. The Fountainhead, Execution, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. I got that one out too. Yeah. Failure is Not an Option. I didn't read that. That's Gene Kranz, right? Yeah. I have that, but I've never read it. Yeah, Leading Change, Financial Intelligence by Lennox. Jag Lennox, yeah. Yeah. So that's a good book. Everything Doug's written is good. The only book I haven't. I like his writing. I do like too. His writing. I haven't read Chuck Wackendorfer's newest book yet. I have to order that because Chuck was on the show in December. Well, it came out in January. Doug was on 3 years ago this summer, and hopefully coming back on because I'm trying to get him scheduled to come back for a second. Those guys, like Ray Kelly, Chuck, Art DeLorenzo, Doug. I mean, those guys just have so many years of just intense wisdom wrapped up in their brain.
Yeah.
There's so many incredible lessons they have. So
if you get Doug on, ask him who's ordered the Simple Genius more, me or someone else.
Well, I got on Amazon, I think it was, and it was incredibly expensive. And I think this was 3 years ago. I think it was Doug or somebody sent me like 7 copies of it, and I gave them out. I think during the podcast, I actually gave out, first 5 people who write in what they liked about this show or rate this show or whatever get a free copy. And so I've got my original copy, which is up on my bookshelf right now. Then I've got one left over that I'm just waiting. I want to keep it so I can give it to, and that's Simple Genius that's the Simple Genius book. Yeah, that one is it's another one. You open it up and inside of it just words that I wrote on the side because it's such an incredibly profound, prolific book, prophetic book, but yet so simple. And he wrote it when he's like 28 years old.
Yeah, I just ordered some. If you go to Think to Perform and order it there, you can actually get it autographed.
Oh,
and it's like half the price of Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon was like outrageous for it. So, well, my brother and my friend, time to wrap up here. This has been amazing. I've been waiting to do this for quite a while with you, and it's funny that we've always stayed in touch. We haven't had a long conversation, a deep conversation in a few years like this, but it's fun to do it actually on the show like this, so other people can hear what you have to say. So
it's fun.
It's fun, man. It's fun. Anything else you want to say?
I think the next time we should probably do it in person, and we could do like what Rogan does. We can have some scotch out, and maybe some cigars.
Cigar and scotch. I could do that. A little bourbon, man. I'm more of a bourbon guy, but
I'm a bourbon guy too. I'm down with that. I
would do that. Bring a couple microphones out, and I'd like to come out to see you guys. I haven't been out to the Pacific Northwest. I think I did a training for samples clients. We did how do you call it? A vision board exercise. We had a bunch of clients came into this really cool microbrewery that he had rented a room in, and I got up and did a talk on vision and creating a vision. And then that was probably, my goodness, 7 years ago. And that's the last time I've been out there, I think. So I got to get out there. All right, brother. Well, hey, thanks for coming on. You've been an amazing guest, and obviously you've been a great friend of mine for the past since 1998 anyway. So whatever that is, 20
a couple days ago,
7 years ago. And you are no longer that bull in the China store, I'm happy to say. You have learned to skate very well.
Not Gretzky yet, but
not Gretzky yet. But, yeah, we're still more of the Bobby Proberts in us, but we can get a little Gretzky, a little Stevie Eiserman in us, and at times. So, all right, brother. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you, Byron. Can you stand for just a minute?
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks, you, bro. I appreciate you, man. Hey, everyone. I know this is one of those episodes, and I've shared this a lot. When I'm doing a show like this, I think this is 143 or 144th show. I can always tell in my bones that what episodes are going to really do well, when going to resonate with you. I know this is one of them, so I'm going to ask a favor of you. Please share this episode with 3 to 5 people you care about who can really learn from Byron's wisdom and his 28 years experience in a very challenging world, professional world. Please rate us. Hit that smash that like button, rate us, review us, share us, and I'll talk to you all in 1 week. In the meantime, please get out there and strive to be and give your best to others. Show love and respect to yourself and to the world, and please live intentionally. I appreciate each and every one of you. Bye-bye.